In Delphi, Indiana, the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German went unsolved for 5 years until a local CBS employee who admitted to being near the crime scene years ago was finally charged. And today, Richard Allen appeared in an Indiana courtroom. We have the latest from the hearing. Good evening and welcome to Closing Arguments. I'm Michael Ayala in tonight for Vinnie Politan. And we begin tonight in Delphi, Indiana, where on February 13, 2017, 13-year-old Abigail Williams and 14-year-old Libby German were dropped off for a walk outside like young girls do. Well, the two young girls were found dead the very next day. The murders remained unsolved for more than 5 years until last October when authorities arrested a local man right from there in Delphi. Richard Allen is charged with 2 counts of murder in the case that rocked the entire community, really. And Delphi is a small community, but we'll have a little bit more on that later. Today, as Allen was escorted into the Carroll County Courthouse, he was met with media attention and an angry onlooker.
Richard Allen, you child murderer! Why did you do it? Shame on you! Shame on you, Richard! You're going to prison for the rest of your life! Shame on you, Richard Allen!
Now, Allen was shackled, as you see there, and appeared in a yellow jumpsuit and protective vest for today's hearing, where the judge made some very important decisions about the upcoming trial. Caitlin Kendall from our great affiliate, WRTV in Indianapolis, was at the hearing and has more for us tonight.
The hearing inside the Carroll County courtroom only lasted about 5 minutes. Special Judge Fran Gohl saying much of the conversation happened in the chambers prior to the hearing. There were a couple of items on the list for Friday's hearing: a gag order, the change of venue, and money for investigators requested by Allen's defense team. Roughly 45 people were in attendance, including family and media. Richard Allen is accused of the 2017 Delphi murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. He walked into the courtroom in a yellow jumpsuit with his arms bound to his chest and shackles at his ankles. He mouthed to his mother and wife in the front row, "I love you." The biggest thing to come out of the hearing is that the jury trial will be held in Carroll County, but a jury will be pulled from another county. Both the defense and the state have 1 week to agree on where that jury will come from. Special Judge Fran Gohl cited that there is an importance to have it in Carroll County, saying that everyone involved in the case is here and that it'll cause unnecessary expenses to both witnesses and family involved in the case. Once a county is chosen, that county will have to agree that they can pull the jury.
I think it makes a lot of sense to have the trial here in Delphi. This case means a lot to this community. The people here have a right to be able to watch the trial and see it unfold. Judge
Gohl also agreed with both the state and the defense that it would be difficult to find a jury who isn't involved in the case in any way. As for the gag order, Judge Gohl continued it as it is, meaning that no one involved in the case, including family, can talk about the facts and the details. As for the supplemental motion for discovery filed by Allen's attorneys, Judge Gohl says that there are thousands of pages to go through and that her decision is still under advisement.
You heard her say in court, this is voluminous, and it is voluminous, and thousands is not even, that's probably a way underestimation of where we're at, and we've been told there's even more discovery coming.
As for the private hearing regarding funds to Allen's defense team for an investigator, his attorney said that they still haven't been given a decision on that. As for Allen, he's due back in court on February 17th for a bail hearing. Then they will also discuss a new trial date, as Judge Gohl says they can't see the trial happening on the date that it's set right now. In Carroll County, I'm Caitlin Kendall.
All right, and getting back to that point of it being a small community, as you heard there, the jury will be brought in from another county. They haven't decided on which county that will be, mostly because, again, it is a smallish community, and just about everyone in that community knows about that crime, was touched by that crime. So, again, good decision there, I would imagine. All right, I want to bring in my guests. Now, these people were at the hearing in Carroll County today. Joining us now from Indianapolis, Indiana, the hosts of the Murder Sheet podcast, Anya, Kane, and Kevin Greenlee. Thank you both for joining us this evening. Truly appreciate it. Great to see you guys. All right, Anya, I'll start with you because what I really want to get a sense of is what it was like in that courtroom. I know you've attended a number of the hearings. You attended today, so give us a sense. It wasn't very long, but what was the mood inside the courtroom?
Absolutely. It was very much one of anticipation. I think whenever you have a court hearing in this very dramatic, very upsetting case, people who are there are wondering what's going to happen next. What more can we learn about this case and the facts? And in addition, once the families come in, there is such pain that these people have gone through the loss of these two precious girls, and still so many unanswered questions. So I think that's really on a lot of people's mind as they're here reporting on it, that at the center of this are two families that lost two beautiful children.
And Kevin, as far as the families go, did they show up? Was there support for Richard Allen? Was there support for the victims in this case?
Yes, members of both of the families of the victims, Abby Williams' family and Libby German's family, were present. And also the mother and wife of Richard Allen were each there. They were sitting together, actually just in front of us. And as Richard Allen walked into the courtroom, he mouthed the words, "I love you," to his wife, and she mouthed them back to him in return.
Anya, as far as Richard Allen goes, could you discern anything from his demeanor, what his mood might be like, what he might be feeling at this point? He's been behind bars for a minute now.
He certainly has, yes. And I think he looked a little bit diminished than when we saw him last, to be frank. He looked sort of faded out, very stricken, kind of a terrified expression on his face. That's how I would characterize it. And I think the faces of his family members also match that. It's just a very, painful moment. And I think, even he's been accused of pretty heinous crimes. So I imagine that and the incarceration certainly play into what we're seeing from him.
Yeah, no question about it, right? Let's get into some of the issues that were addressed today. Again, as I said earlier, very important issues being addressed by the court. First one quickly, Kevin, the gag order was extended. They're going to continue with that gag order. Explain to me what we can expect as far as that goes. They can speak about procedural things, is my understanding, but everything else pretty much off limits?
That's basically what the judge said today. She actually worded it very interestingly. She said, I had a meeting with the attorneys in my chambers, and I reminded them of the rules of professional conduct, that it's okay to talk about procedural matters. Other matters it's not so okay to talk about. She clearly does not want this to be tried in the press. She does not want the prosecution and the defense to go at it in public media.
All right. The other big issue today, I think one of the big things today was the change of venue. We heard that talked about a little bit. She ruled on that, deciding that they would stay in Carroll County, but bring in a jury from somewhere else. Anya, give me some details on that rule.
Absolutely. So this comes from the defense's motion to have change of venue, and they specifically asked for the trial to be moved 150 miles away from Delphi at least. And that basically, when you look at a map of Indiana, just leaves the southern portion. So they wanted to move far away because they noted that not only is Carroll County following this case closely, but so many people locally have a connection to someone who searched for Libby and Abby, someone who knew Libby and Abby. It's a very interconnected community, and there's concerns about bias there. So basically what you have the judge saying is, I agree with this, but it's unreasonable to make the victims' families have to pay for travel and accommodations and staying elsewhere when this trial is going on. So best of both worlds, in her view, was to basically bring a new jury of outsiders to Carroll County while having the trial play out here.
All right, and Kevin, I understand that you're an attorney, so maybe you can break down for us, and in some of the most important parts, there were a number of discovery issues that happened today. They wanted expert reports. This was a defense. They filed a motion. They wanted to know if there were any witnesses that were going to testify against him. They wanted records and statements made by Allen. There were quite a few. Break down for us some of the more important ones and what the rulings were by the court.
One of the more interesting ones in my mind was the defense wanted to know, is there any witness who's made a deal with the state to testify or to provide information? If so, we want to know the name of that witness. We want to know what he was promised. And the prosecution replied by saying they have not made any promises to any witnesses. So that suggests there's been no deal with anybody to bring about this prosecution of Mr. Allen. Other than that, the prosecution seemed pretty willing to give them most of what they wanted. The only exception is that in some instances, the defense asked not just for recordings and transcripts of statements that were made, but they also asked for any analysis that the prosecution had made of those. And the prosecution's position was, well, basically, you're asking us to do your work for you. We'll give you the statements, we'll give you the transcripts and all the reports. It's up to you to analyze it yourself and figure out what you think it means.
Fair enough. All right. Now, when you talk about at least they're saying that at this point, there's no deals for anyone to testify against Richard Allen. First thing that comes to my mind, Anya, is, of course, Keegan Klein. He's a name that's been thrown around. He's actually facing charges. We know that at some point, he may have had social media contact with the girls. I know he was involved just before the arrests were made. There was some question as to whether he was someone that the prosecution might be working with. I'm not sure that their answer today means they're not working with him, but what are your thoughts on him?
It's a great question. I think because of the timing, a lot of people have conflated Keegan Klein and some of the investigation into him and his sort of catfishing activities, alleged catfishing activities, with the fact that Richard Allen was arrested this October. And because of the timing, I can understand that. But I would say that this sort of points away from him having a super concrete role in any arrest of Richard Allen. That's not to say that the charges against Klein are irrelevant. I mean, he's certainly facing some pretty serious child sexual abuse materials charges. But I think at this point, we're sort of in a bit of a wait and see how this ends up being linked or not linked to the case, just because I think this kind of indicates that at the very least, he didn't necessarily cut a deal with prosecutors to have his charges dropped so that, they could arrest Allen. I think this points away from that.
Fair enough. All right. Now, the other thing that's interesting is, when you talk about sit back and wait and see what happens at the trial, we thought that might be as early as coming up in March. But it turns out today, Kevin, that looks like that's not going to be the case.
It looks like it's not going to be the case. The judge said when you consider all of the amount of discovery materials that the defense needs to examine, which is thousands upon thousands of tips, case reports, emails, what have you, it doesn't seem realistic that they'll have the time to really go through and properly examine those in a matter of just a couple of months. And she said, I don't see how we can basically make this March trial date. And the prosecution agreed that making that date would be rather ambitious. She asked the defense if they wanted to postpone the date. They said they wanted to delay consideration of changing the date until the next hearing, which will be the bail hearing next month.
All right, and Anya, I'm out of time, but I want to give you, if there's anything that you want to add to this, any impressions you had that I haven't asked you about that you wanted to share, I wanted to give you that opportunity before I have to say goodbye.
Absolutely. You asked terrific questions. And I would just say that I think this is a process that's going to be slow and answers are going to be sort of slowly rolled out over time, hopefully. But we think it's important to kind of cover every aspect of this trial because it will give us, or these pretrial hearings, because it will give us a sense of how the trial will go in the future.
All right. Well, Anya, Kane, Kevin Greenlee, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Always appreciate it. And folks, when we come back, our investigators will be joining me for more on that Delphi murder case. But first, here's what's coming up in our next hour. In Chula Vista, California, mother of three, Maya Miliete, disappeared 2 years ago, and she has never been found. But her husband, Larry, has been charged with her murder. Tonight, we're bringing you the latest from day 3 of the accused killer's preliminary hearing.
And hopefully, we were hoping, Larry would be able to help us then search for his sister, but, he never did.
Case ever comes back, I'll try the damn thing again because Mark Jensen belongs in prison.
Mark Jensen.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of intentional homicide.
She was poisoned by him using ethylene glycol.
Set to be retried after his conviction was overturned.
He deserves a new trial that is a fair trial.
Now a second jury will determine his fate.
And our cameras will bring you every moment.
The antifreeze murder retrial. Live coverage continues Tuesday morning, only on Court 1-9855.
Still one of the most cryptic pieces of evidence for any case we've ever had here on Court TV. 2 years after Abby Williams and Libby German were found dead, police released that cell phone video to the public as part of their investigation. Now, it would take 3 more years for authorities to name the suspected killer. But when Richard Allen was taken into custody in October, the probable cause affidavit for his arrest shed some light on the connections between Allen and the crime. WRTV's Caitlin Kendall has those details.
Investigators say marks on a single bullet found near the bodies tie Allen to the killings of the girls. Court documents state several witnesses say they saw Allen on the Monon High Bridge around the time the girls disappeared. The documents detail an interview police had with Allen back in 2017, where he told investigators he was on the trail from 1:30 to 3:30 that day. Surveillance video shows a car matching Allen's in the area at the time of the crime. Court documents state the video Libby took on her phone shows Abby walking on the Monon High Bridge when a man wearing a dark jacket and jeans walks behind her. They go on to say one of the girls mentions gun before being told, "Guys, down the hill." That audio was later released to help with the investigation. Documents say the video ends shortly after the girls start to walk down the hill. Allen was interviewed a second time where he told investigators he was on the trail that day wearing blue jeans and a blue or black Carhartt jacket with the hood. Documents say during a search at Allen's home, police found clothing that matches what was worn by the alleged killer. They also found a gun that belonged to Allen. Analysis on that gun found the bullet found near the girls' bodies had been inside Allen's gun. Allen told police he never let anyone borrow it. What we still don't know is how the 2 teens died.
All right, joining me from Salt Lake City, private investigator Jason Jensen, and in Pensacola, Florida, private investigator Lauren Vellucci. Thank you both for being with me tonight. Great to see you guys. After today's hearing, there's still so many questions, right? So what I want to do is, you guys have been following this case just as much as we have here on Court TV. But I'll start with one, and then I want to know what questions you guys still have. But my question, and I'll start with you, Jason, is this whole idea of today we found out, or at least we think we found out, that perhaps there's not someone else that prosecutors have to testify against Richard Allen, this Keegan Klein guy. He's sort of been out there in the in the woods, and we're thinking maybe he's a guy because his arrest came close to Richard Allen's ultimate arrest. Your thoughts on this idea now that this really isn't based on some other party giving information to police that led to the arrest of Richard Allen?
Well, I really just question the validity of that. Yeah, maybe there's not an agreement made in place yet, but there have been negotiations, is my suspicion. It's my experience from 15 years when I worked at a law firm that often these negotiations take place to get the information, and there's no agreement that's canonized in writing until after the fruits of that negotiation come forward. And so if this testimony exchange for information plea deal is on the table, it's going to be as a result of what comes up this trial before there's a deal struck to benefit the declarant that's bringing in this information forward during his proceedings.
Lauren, I agree 100%. What I first thought was, and it wouldn't be above prosecutors to do a little gamesmanship where, they may be in discussions, but there are no agreements right now. So why give that away to the defense team? Your thoughts on that issue?
Absolutely. And we've seen that, Michael, on other trials that you guys have covered here, where according to their testimony, when they're on the stand, there'll be possibly a deal given. But I agree with Jason 100%. They're not going to offer that and have that as a means to him taking the stand and having to tell the jury that, yes, I have taken a deal, and it was because of this deal that I'm testifying to you today. So they're not going to do that yet. I agree 100%.
Yeah, we haven't heard the last of Keegan Klein. I have that feeling. I'll stay with you, Lauren, because, again, I wanted to know what questions you still have, because you guys have been following this case. Jason, there's something specific I want to ask you, but first I want to start with Lauren. Is there anything lingering? What's jumping out at you, the remaining questions that surround this case, something that might be bothering you?
I want to know what evidence they have against him, because it's not a very solid affidavit of the probable cause. So I want to see the affidavit for the search warrant for his home and what they were searching for, what they got. And I just think that there better be a whole lot more evidence against him, and I'm anxious to see that.
Yeah, we all felt the same way. This was a guy who actually talked to the police 5 years before during the initial investigation. They didn't feel they had enough then. And again, this leads us back to the Keegan Klein question, because it wasn't until he got involved that they sort of went back to this guy and then started to really sort of focus in on him. But Jason, I saw something posted. I follow you on social media. We're friends. There was something you posted that I found very interesting regarding figuring out the height of the person in that infamous chilling video where the person is walking on the bridge and you hear them say, "Go down the hill." Talk to me about that. And was there anything that came of that? Did you run any kind of, I know I saw you had the width of it versus the height, and you could maybe figure out his height. Anything come of that?
Right. Anyone that's familiar with algebra and geometry knows that if you get two different directions, and you have a known direction for the platform, what the estimation of the height would be. So we know that the width of the bridge is 10 feet. So how high so that'd be, if we know X, what is Y, we should be able to determine the height of the bridge guy simply just from a mathematical calculation. My determination is over 6 feet. That does not match. That does not match Rick Allen, because Allen's only 5'4".
Exactly, and 6 feet or not, now I'm not questioning your calculations at all, but I agree 100% that the guy in that video does not look to be as short as Richard Allen is, right? And then you also, you have this idea, Lauren, of these two drawings that they came out with initially, and there's two different drawings. I wonder if that might be problematic. Your thoughts on this idea that maybe the person in that video, that infamous video, may not be Richard Allen?
It's very possible. Those drawings are still very confusing. I think we all kind of, even now that they've arrested someone for the murder, still don't make a lot of sense. So yeah, it can definitely be problematic at trial. And yeah, I mean, it could be a lot of people. There are similarities to him and the first drawing, in my opinion, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's Bridge Guy. Yeah, I mean, there certainly are similarities. You can't deny that. But he was so forthcoming with police. He even told them he was in the area, so he can't claim an alibi now. But he never got rid of the jacket, the jacket that supposedly had blood on it. He never got rid of the clothes. So there's a lot odd going on here. Still a lot to be